Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners.
When somebody presents me with a new opportunity, I ask myself, how is this going to get me closer to my goal? Right. Yep. And if I can answer within a split second, right, then that's an opportunity I need to explore a little bit further. If there is the slightest pause, it's a no.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, I'm your host, Billy Keels, and I am super excited about sharing today's conversation because it's going to be absolutely awesome. I know you're going to get a lot out of this, especially if you're someone who is in a W-2 today and you're thinking about, wow, what else can I be doing? It's going to be awesome. Listen, you also know, everyone, we continue to move up the charts. Really appreciate you and the way that you are sharing the episodes. If we talked about leaving your honest written review as well as rating. Really appreciate that. Starting to even see a lot of you are beginning to post like screenshots of the podcast and share them across social media. Make sure you tag us when you do that, please, because sometimes I get them after the fact, which would be greatly appreciated. It's one of these things. We like it. We love being able to see that you're getting value from this, and we want to continue to bring you more. And so, also, speaking of which, the podcast episodes, all the solo episodes, all the interviews, you can go to firstgencp.com/podcasts and find every single one of them. And so every single one, literally every single one of them, just go firstgencp.com/podcasts. As for today and the conversation that you're going to listen to, really enjoy the energy in this conversation. It's been absolutely fantastic. Talk about some concepts. If you're in a W-2 today and you're trying to figure out, hey, listen, what else can I be doing? Well, we've got none other than the W-2 capitalist himself, Mr. J. Helms, and then we're going to get to that conversation just after this. So you know what? If you want to know how to make your W-2 work for you to accelerate your long-distance investing journey, then guess what? Today's the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. You know why? Oh my gosh, this is going to be really awesome because listen, today's guest not only started his early professional career in the customer success area in IT. We got a lot of IT salespeople here, a lot of IT executives. He also followed this experience in sales management as well as business development. Gotta like that, nice chops. And then, hey, listen, he got into the real estate thing. Massive experience, everything from sole ownership to general partnership to limited partnership. And I'm sure he's going to tell us a lot about that. And guess what, everybody? He also spent 19 years in the corporate career, 19 years, lived through 2 acquisitions and even one of the bankruptcies. So he's probably going to talk to us a little bit more about that. And today, listen to this. He is on a mission to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, the founder of W-2 Capitalist, Mr. J. Helms. Jay, welcome to the show, man.
Billy, thank you. I've done a few podcasts, and that is by far the best introduction. You've done your homework, man. I appreciate that. You brought up some stuff that I don't think is on the one sheet that I don't even think I've sent it to you yet, actually. So you guys do your homework, man.
And just think about that. I didn't even talk about the game show stuff. We could have gone there.
Yeah.
You may want to tell everybody what that's about. So, but you know, hey, listen, the team and I, we like to get to know our guests. This is what we like to do. We like to do.
Done your homework, man.
Thank you very much. Well, listen, here's the thing. Jay, we love to be able to ask questions, and I'm going to always ask 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning, you're going to get 3 in the end, but there's some things that you're going to get asked in the middle. But unfortunately, Jay, I just don't know what those questions are. So why don't we jump into the first one, man? Help us understand, where is it that you call home in the U.S.?
Yeah, so we call home Gulf Breeze, Florida. It's a little small town between downtown Pensacola Beach. And we've been here for about 3 years, but I say we call it home, but for the last year, give it 15 months, we've converted our primary residence to an Airbnb, and we've been traveling all over the eastern part of the U.S. I think we've hit like 18 different states and doing what we call a little bit of slow travel, or our version of it. So, but yeah, we're home now. We'll be here. Well, here's the funny thing. We'll be here for 2.5 months, except for this upcoming weekend, because when we decided, all right, we're going to go home, we're going to spend, the fall at home. It was after somebody booked a weekend to stay in our Airbnb. So last night I looked at my wife, I said, hey, wait a minute, where are we living this weekend? She goes, I don't know. So we had to kind of figure that out. And a matter of fact, as I was waiting for this to start, I booked us a place. So It was one of those rare times I get to choose, which is very rare, which I'm glad that's not. But yeah, we call Gulf Breeze, Florida home, man. It's hot, humid weather in the summertime. We hate it. So we're staying gone during those times. And we're letting this property generate some revenue for us.
Hey, man, we love that. We love that. And being able to be living the long distance lifestyle, music to our ears. So, hey, welcome home, Jay. Welcome home. So that's the other thing. Well, that was the first thing. The second thing is help us understand, what is the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
Oh, in the last 24 hours.
Yep.
I mean, to be very transparent, my wife and I, we got in an argument a week ago, and we didn't talk for like an entire week. I mean, it was one of those like, just
that down,
and we finally came to amends and to an agreement and made up last night. So that was it. It's good to be talking again. It's good to be back into that loving relationship,
Well, love you being able to be feeling enough warmth here to share that with us. Really, really appreciate that. And when you get those moments, right, where you can say, hey, listen, we just went through a week that was not very nice. Feels really great to be back on the same page, and that's fantastic. So appreciate you sharing that with us. And I've been married for 14 years, man. So that's there's moments that you gotta work through everything. Yeah. So listen, here's the thing also too, Jay. I know you and I are getting to know one another in this conversation. Don't know that much about me, but I'm someone who tends to like have a really high standard, like sometimes to the point of like it doesn't even make sense. Because I give myself these like goals that are almost impossible, if not impossible. One of the goals that I give myself every time, like today specifically, I wanted to tell your entire backstory in 2.5 seconds. that was never going to happen, right? That was never, ever going to happen. But hey, listen, it's one of these defaults or defects that I have in being a recovering perfectionist. So here's the thing. Right, I need your help right off the bat. I need you, please, to tell your backstory in your own words, and you can use a lot more than 2.5 seconds because you're our special guest. So please share us your backstory and your own words. And then also too, JF, if you could just do one thing, help us understand like some of the major decisions that you made to get to this point in your journey. And then we'll see where you and I take the conversation from there.
Yeah. So we'll start with when the real estate started happening, right? Kind of what led to that. And I was a principal at an IT startup company. I was employee number 5. Built that company over the next several years, and then that company got acquired. That acquisition was not going well at all, and it was one of those things where I come home. There was kind of a trifecta thing trifecta of events that happened. I better get this date right, in September. Yeah. Cause we just celebrated our 9-year wedding anniversary. September, got married. In January, we found out that we were pregnant with our first. And then in April, the IT company I was a principal at was getting acquired, and that acquisition, the wheels were falling off, right? We're trying to go down the road and with no tires whatsoever. So those 3 things were happening. And I kind of look at myself as like, all right, this is no longer fun working like this, because now not only am I worried about myself, I'm now a husband, about to have a kid on the way, daily thoughts of I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get laid off. Then what am I going to do? I really lacked some self-confidence and just being a great employee and kind of what we're doing. So we kind of sat down and said, all right, just ask the question, how do wealthy people get wealthy? And all signs kept pointing to real estate investing. And we eventually made that plunge on our very first property. I laugh at it now, but it was a single family foreclosure, $25,000 purchase, and I remember wanting to back out of the purchase because it was $25,000, and I was like, this is going to bankrupt us. But this is a different chapter in our lives. We were, that wasn't really all the money that we had saved up. And I felt like that was going to be a horrible decision, but my wife talked me through it. She's like, what's the worst we got to lose? And I was like, well, $25,000, if you want to put it that way, but it never happened. I'm like you, I set real high standards. I don't know if you do this or not, but I tell myself stories that never come true. and just the paranoid side of me that kind of comes up. And so that was kind of our kickoff. And that was in 2014. Matter of fact, we closed on that property just 3 weeks after son number one was born, or kid number one was born, happened to be a son. And from then on, we were hooked. And our net worth and our cash flow has been nothing but just, hockey stick since then, which led to, we kept buying properties. We'd buy maybe 1 or 2 properties a year, leading up to May of 2020. And then May of 2020, I was laid off from the company I was working at. I had actually changed jobs a couple of times. There was a second acquisition after the first one. A lot of painful memories were being relived through that. Right. And I'd had enough, and I started looking around at other jobs and found one. And I was a sales manager, sales director had a sales team and whatnot for the entire US, and great money, great people. And then COVID happened, and the company I was working for decided, all right, we've got to make some changes. We got to pivot, or try to pivot. And I was laid off, and we had been building our portfolio for the last 6 years. Not quite comfortable enough. Again, I got my security blanket, I got my W-2 paycheck is coming in. I didn't want it to go away. And then after about 3 days of kind of moping around the house of being laid off and being confused on why so-and-so wasn't laid off, because I saw what his sales team was producing that wasn't the same as mine. I made the decision. I was like, all right, this is a kick in pants I needed. I'm never going to go back to the W-2. We're going to make this real estate investing thing work. And that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years. We actually, I was putting a presentation together yesterday and realized we've made more acquisitions this year, in the midst of a recession, in the midst of a crazy economy, whatever. We've made more acquisitions this year and more private money loans this year than we have in the last 5 years combined. And I think, and this kind of goes back to your next question, I started getting out of my own way. Right. And I started surrounding myself with people who were doing it, who were telling me, hey, you're not crazy for thinking that. But let me tell you what I've experienced. I'm a little bit further down the road than you are in this scenario. Let me tell you what I did, what worked, what didn't work.
Yeah. So, and when you get that moment of just clarity, and then you begin to take action on that clarity and surround yourself with people that are already steps ahead of you. Right.
Yeah.
That's the key. And I like how you phrased that. You didn't say necessarily the person that's been doing it for 50 years, but the person who's ahead of you, right? That's absolutely key, which I appreciate. You said one of the other things too, and I just kind of want to talk about it right from the very beginning, because you've mentioned that you are kind of moving around. You were very clear as to why you went into real estate, because, you just sat down and had the moment and wanted to look around and, ask yourself that really great question, which is, how do wealthy people get wealthy? And so you figured out this was one of the ways. At the same time, Jay, you're doing something that most people consider to be extremely contrarian, right? You're in a great place here. A lot of it. Let me break it down. I'll tell you the part specifically that says, because when I read my books, whatever, it was over a decade ago, and I started investing, or I wanted to start investing, but I got caught up in my own head and I just got into theory. I was afraid to get out there and actually, put money, because I thought I was going to lose the whole $25,000. So we've got that in common. But you ultimately decided to say, hey, listen, you live in Florida, but also you are investing in places that are not in Florida, where you've been a limited partner or you've been a general partner. And that is so contrarian, because most of the time they say, well, listen, you have to be a landlord. You have to buy where you live. And I'm not saying that you can't do that, but it takes, I believe, a certain impetus to go beyond where you live and invest beyond your backyard, which is the whole thing about the Going Long podcast. So maybe give us some insight into what it took for you, Jay, to say, hey, listen, I am going to invest in a place that I don't actually live. I may not be going there with my family either. Because sometimes people get stuck, and everybody comes here to the Going Long podcast because we want to find out what other people's motivations were. So share a little bit with us.
Yeah. So 2 parts to that. I got tired of banging my head against the wall and trying to find a deal here in Pensacola. We're very conservative from our real estate investing criteria. So when we look in Pensacola and kind of Gulf Breeze where we lived, it was really hard to find a deal that checked all of our boxes in like 2017, 2018, and since then. And so, I kept hearing about this thing of passive income, multifamily passive income. And luckily I'm very lucky to have a couple of guys in my mastermind who focus on that, and they do a very good job of providing returns. And so I started getting to know them. And so a lot of folks talk about investing criteria, but what they don't necessarily talk about is partnership criteria. And so I started thinking about, all right, and this has saved me several times. Matter of fact, I almost entered a partnership earlier this year with a guy, and he and I had a great relationship for years. And I got to know him, and he said something one day that just infuriated me. And I kind of sat back and I was like, wait a minute, why am I getting so mad? This is a potential partnership. I already said, yes, I'm involved. Let's start working. And I sat back, and whatever he said made me pause and just think about, okay, this guy's been married 3 times. He's told me stories about where he sued his partners before. He's been sued by his other partners before. I'm like, these are red flags. I should not be involved in this. I backed out of the deal. And so what I kind of put together without knowing it was a partnership criteria, right? And I've got to know somebody. And that's where, when you look at investing from afar or investing out of your own backyard, it really comes down to the partner that's representing the deal and how well you get along with them. Like when I look at somebody as a potential partner, they got to be married. And because then I get to know him, get to know their how they treat each other. I was going to say get to know how they treat their wife, but there are wives who sponsor deals too. And so I get to see how they react with their spouse, and I get to see how, because essentially when you invest with somebody in a multifamily deal or any kind of partnership, you're getting married for as long as that partnership exists. Right. And so I did not want to get into a relationship with somebody I'm always going to argue with, who I may not fully trust. And so I spent some time, there's a minimum, I put a minimum mark on it just so people can wrap their head around it, of 6 months. Like I've got to know you for about 6 months before I'm going to pull the trigger and say, here's money, go do whatever. And that 6 months is not, Billy, you and I have a conversation today, and then 6 months from today, we have another conversation, and that checks the box. That's not how that works, right? I mean, there's got to be some. Are you sure, some relationship?
Are you
yes,
sure?
Yeah. I got a message the other day on one of the social media platforms, and this guy was like, hey, I got a 172 unit under contract. And that was it. That was his message. I was like, great. What can I do for you? He goes, I just thought you might want to invest in it. I was like, I mean, we're connected. So because you sent me the message, but I don't know you. Like, let's get to know each other. And I was like, and I kind of explained to him my criteria and whatnot. And I said, maybe on the next one, let's get to know each other. Maybe on the next one. Haven't heard from the guys since. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of a filtering mechanism, but I get to know the partners more so than the properties. Matter of fact, we're currently involved as LPs in 2 different syndications. Never been to the cities these are in, let alone never view the properties, right? Because it comes down to the partners that are involved. I fully trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. And if things go crazy, which they will at some point in time, I feel they're going to be transparent enough to say, hey, here's what's happened, and here's why we're not able to hit those projected returns this quarter or this year or whatever the case is. So I focus on the partners more so than the actual location.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. Because one of the things we talk about a lot is, I think a lot of times you get exactly what happened to you, where somebody, they've seen you on social media and they send you hey, I've got this deal, and that's the opportunity, right? That's the deal. But the thing is that person doesn't know exactly, what are you trying to do? Do you want to be able to travel with your family forever? Are you trying to get money for retirement? Are you saving to help pay for something once you personally understand and clear where you want to go, then you go to the location and say, okay, well, this location, is this going to give me the highest probability of getting to the result or the benefit that I'm looking for? And then after that, to your point, you have to have a team, a rock star team that actually understands the location or whatever it is that you are trying to do. Like sometimes it's real estate, sometimes it's energy sector. I do a lot of that kind of stuff nowadays. And then afterwards, when those first 3 things are in line, it doesn't really matter if it's a 120 unit or a 700 unit or a 5 unit, because you've done the first 3 steps and you've built the trust. And so I love hearing you talk about that. There's one other thing that you mentioned, Jay, that because a lot of times people are afraid of, hey, listen, I've been investing all this time with this person, and it ends up that they said something that I didn't like. And I thought about it, and I thought about the stories, and they've had this type of outcomes from relationships, personally, professionally. And you said something that I want to make sure that everybody understands. You said you decided not to go down that path. When you didn't go down that path, what happened to you the next day? Did you wake up next day just fine? And
I actually, because I had to have the phone call, right? I had to have the conversation. This is a guy who's not in my market, or regardless, we're traveling anyway, so it's not. But I had to have the phone call, and I called him up and I said, "Look, here's where I'm at," and kind of told him, and he accepted it. He understood, and man, when we hung up, there was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And it was, just a huge breath of fresh air. Just like, that's all right. And that was confirmation, right? That's what exactly needed to happen.
Yeah, because had you not done that, there's probably this feeling that would have been around your neck or your ankle or your waist or your something for quite a long time. So, and I appreciate you sharing that, because to the point that you're helping a lot of the Going Long family today is recognize that there are certain points in time where you've gone down a trek, but the better thing to do is very similar to what Jay did, is be honest with yourself and then be honest with the person. Because once that happens, I'm sure, Jay, that you'll feel comfortable crossing paths with the person because, hey, listen, even though you didn't decide to go that way, you at least treated the situation with respect and transparency.
Yeah. And as far as I know, me and that individual we're good to go. No, I don't think I say that, but now you got me thinking, I don't know that we've talked since then. But even if you haven't spoken, the fact of the matter is you treated the situation with transparency and we're open. And that is, if the other person doesn't want to, understand it, then they don't understand it. And at least you can go to sleep and sleep well at night. So there's another thing that you said as well. And I'm sure people are like, well, hang on a second, but he said he only would work with people that are married. Everybody, just to understand. So it's really important that everyone has a criteria, right? Everyone has to have a criteria. But Jay, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about how you come about with your criteria. Because you talked about the 6 months, you talked about the marriage thing, just because a lot of people, this may be a new concept for them. Help them understand how you got to your criteria. Experience, man. I've been through some really horrible partnerships in the past. And it was just, when I finally sat down and said, okay, which partnerships worked really well? Which partnerships did not? Let's evaluate what those look like, and the marriage thing. And yes, people invest for all different reasons. You said something earlier about goals. And one of the challenging questions that came to me a couple months ago, because we're presented with new opportunities all the time. Right? Yeah. And so now the question is, when somebody presents me with a new opportunity, I ask myself, how is this going to get me closer to my goal? Right. Yep. And if I can answer within a split second, right, then that's an opportunity I need to explore a little bit further. If there is the slightest pause, it's a no. Because then I'm going to start grasping for straws and trying to make it work. But the criteria is just something I built over time. Everybody's going to have their own, just like everybody has their own investing criteria. The marriage thing, being married, and seeing how those relationships work, or how our marriage relationship works, and how that closely that ties into a partnership on a real estate investing deal. I just said, all right, let's make sure they're married, right? If they've been divorced once, I feel like everybody gets a pass, because sometimes, things just don't work out. But if there is life happens. If there is a continuing trend there where there's a divorce, they're married, divorce, then that's a red flag, right? To me, that just shows that there's something there. There's a common denominator in that situation where maybe they just don't treat people with the utmost respect or whatnot. And again, we're presented with opportunities all the time. There are plenty of opportunities. Why shouldn't I be able to narrow my focus and do the opportunities I want to do? Right. Just like anybody listening, don't grab everything that comes at you. Just focus on what makes sense for you.
Yeah. And in the same way, right? So Jay sharing his perspective, his life experience. There may be somebody else today that says, hey, look, I would prefer to work with people that are single or that are whatever. But the important part is that you have a criteria, because that's a framework which is going to help you to not, just what Jay said, you're not going to spend a lot of time, a wasted time, because eventually you're going to figure out that, hey, frameworks really help to get to decisions, making decisions faster. And the more no's you get is probably the better thing, because it helps to save your brain.
Those are the guardrails that are going to keep you focused.
That's exactly it.
Just having them up is the point there. Right?
So when you have this up, and you talked about losing the money earlier and potentially losing the money, I've shared with you being a recovering perfectionist. You've got to always work through these things. Like, to talk to us about how do you work through fear, and maybe give us an example of like how you are combating it even today. Because I think a lot of times people get afraid and they're like, I'm not going to do that because it's new or whatever. Talk to us about that.
So, fear is one of those funny things, and I battle confidence issues. I've battled confidence issues my entire life until I started adopting this kind of concept. And what I adopted was, when it comes to investing, if it hits our criteria, then I got to ask myself, okay, what's the worst case scenario here? Right. Mm-hmm. And then the follow-up kind of kick in the butt question is, can I live with the worst case scenario? And if I can, then you just punch the fear in the face and you move forward. And one of those, that conversation I was talking about, I dreaded having that conversation, because I knew this guy, I respected him, but I just knew from a partnership it wasn't going to work. And so one of the things I've really tuned in on the last year is listen to your gut. There's scientific studies that there's, 80 billion neutrons that are connected in your brain and your gut. So when it says listen to your gut, you're really listening to the subconsciousness of your brain, right? And so really listen to your gut and really get in tune on what that means. And then if I'm afraid of doing something, or concerned about doing something, having a conversation or whatever, it is the very first thing that I'm going to do next. Right. Mm-hmm. And so what that does is it allows to get that mental capacity, that fear, that thing I'm worried about, it just gets it out of my brain. Right. And now I can go focus on everything else, where let's just say if it's first thing in the morning, I will go do that right then. Right. Because if I don't, then the rest of the day, thinking about it, I'm going to try, because I know that's what needs to be done. But if I put pause on it, then throughout the day, I'm making excuses, and it's just weighing heavier and heavier on me. And this took a long time to kind of, and I'm not perfected it by no means, but to even give myself the confidence to actually do that. Right. And it's kind of funny. I challenge our kids. My wife does not like this, but I challenge my kids every day. So I do something today that scares you. I was like, And I was like, I'm not telling them to jump off a bridge. Like, that's not going to happen, but jump off the couch. When our kids were 1, I was like, jump off the couch, see what happens, And so, but yeah, you got to own up to the fear. And I think one of the things that really helped me is to build that courage is find the courage to take the smallest step toward facing that fear, and then see where your momentum takes you. Right. And if you can do that enough, then you're going to find out there's really nothing to be scared of. And I'm the world's worst. I used to be. I'm not now. I can say there's probably people on the planet that tell worse stories to themselves now than I used to. But a couple years ago, I was the leader in the clubhouse. It was just, oh my gosh, this is going to we're going to go bankrupt because of a $25,000 investment. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of things going to happen with the self-talk. And when you actually face that fear and you're doing things yourself, and then also when others, especially when you have kids, as you mentioned before, like they see you, or you're afraid, are you facing your fears? What type of fear is it? What's the downside risk to doing it? And then are you doing it or not doing it more frequently? And then when you can inspire others to get out there and break through the fear, it's fantastic. You want to say something else?
Yeah. On the kid thing, I tell my kids, hey, I'm afraid, of whatever. We have very transparent conversations about our investing and money, and which is not something we did when I was growing up, right? Yep. Money was a taboo topic. Yep. And, and so I share with them, hey, I'm afraid. And, when I recognize they're afraid, then I'll say, hey, I get that you're scared. Right. I get you're afraid of this. And it's so funny that in our mastermind calls, when we get very transparent and we talk about deals and whatnot, and there's people there that have been through this before that we didn't know, and we're like, and I raise my hand, hey, I'm afraid, or this situation scares me. Can we talk about that? And again, it's helping boosting your own confidence is surrounding yourself with like-minded people who may or may not be a little bit further down the road than you are, right?
Yeah, that's it, man. And once again, being able to share that, have those vulnerable experiences, and then be around a group of people, once again, that are supportive and appreciative and are uplifting. So listen, I do want to get into, you just mentioned something. I don't know if it's one word or two words, but depends on who you're asking. But before we get into the going along final three, you've mentioned a couple times masterminds. And I know that it's something that you are a big believer in. I would love for you to share a little bit more what your thoughts are on masterminds, how you're incorporating those today, and what the additional value that you are seeing as a result of masterminding.
Yeah. So mastermind, you ask people who lead masterminds, the definition of masterminds all over the place, right? No matter of fact, with ours, we're thinking about changing the name from a marketing standpoint just to call it a peer community or something along those lines. Because masterminds can be a one-time event, that happens in person. It can be a routine event that happens in person. For us, it is 20 virtual calls every month. Depending on what niche you are, you've got a call going on. And it really is, we come in and share ideas and say, okay, here's what I've got going on. We also share what big wins or successes everybody's had, because there are times, Billy, and you probably know this too, is sometimes real estate investing just sucks. and you're kind of down on yourself, but then you find yourself in a room full of people, whether it's virtual or live, and you're hearing these people brag about what they just accomplished. It's motivating. It's super empowering to do that. And then, you run into, hey, I've got questions or whatnot. Then it's basically a sounding board for you to ask questions to very experienced people. We have one rule in our mastermind that I don't know is anywhere else, but we have one rule that if somebody asks a question, then whoever answers it has to be based on their experience. The comment, well, I heard this on sorry, Billy, if I heard this on a podcast or I saw this on a blog article, we rarely go there if nobody on the call has the experience. So so you're getting real world feedback on, hey, here's what happened to me in that situation. And we've had some doozies. We've had, hey, I just found a dead tenant. What do I do? Like, oh, well, wow. So we talk about it. And so it really just depends. But the value, I think the second part of your question was the value that I've seen out of it. The confidence to be able to grow, the confidence to be able to face my fears. Partnerships have come out of that. One of the things I love about our peer community is the amount of partnerships that have been developed out of it. And not just with me, but other members that I don't even know. We had an in-person event last year, and I said, hey, I'm curious. We had about 40 people. It's a very small boutique group, right? So we had about 40 people there, and I was like, how many of you partnered together on at least one deal here in the mastermind? Or you partnered because you met each other in the mastermind? And, almost half the room hands went up. And we got to, I think the last question I asked, how many of you partnered on at least 9 deals together before all hands went down? And I'm like, wow, that's pretty powerful to kind of see that. And I was like, I need to partner more with these folks. Yeah. But the kind of underlying value is you get to know you're not alone in this world, right? Yeah. And that you're not crazy and that you're not insane just because, mom and dad didn't do it this way. And that's where you were growing up and you're having these different thoughts. It doesn't mean that you're crazy. It just means maybe you're not around the right people. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Being around the right people is it makes all the difference, right? It's getting the baseline education and comes back to what we talked about, the support. And it lends itself to, you gave a perfect example earlier. If I get a chance to meet you and I know you and I've known you for 6 months, maybe that's once a month for the last 6 months, or maybe, hey, I've spoken to you every week, once a week for the last 6 months. I mean, it's just, you get more insight, right? And so when you are a part of a group of peers, mastermind or otherwise, it gives you a chance to move through that spectrum where you are knowing someone, you're liking someone eventually because of the exposure and the time, you have more of a probability to trust that person as well.
Yeah,
so I appreciate you really hitting the nail on the head there, man. You know what? The thing is, Jay, I wanted to ask you more questions, but I'm recognizing we got to get into the going long final three, man. And the thing is, I never ask any of our special guests, and today you're our special guest, the going long final three, unless you tell me that you're ready. So are you ready?
I guess so. Yeah. Let's
come on, man. I know you're ready. Just say yes, man. Yes.
I know. There's one question that I'm concerned about, and that's it.
You don't have to. No, you're not concerned. You're not concerned. Listen, I'll walk you through it. Don't worry. So you know what? And I have been over here because we started with you over in Gulf Breeze, Florida. And I want to, even though you're traveling all up and down the East Coast of the U.S., I think you said even 18 states over the last couple months.
18, yes, sir.
Amazing. Yeah. You got me beat on 18 states over the last couple months. I haven't done that. But we're going to work together on this one. So help me. I want to come back to this side. Although I'm from Columbus, Ohio originally, I'm been over here for the last 21 years. I would love... Now, I've lived everywhere from Paris to Cagliari in Italy and then Montpellier in the south, and even most recently Barcelona. So,
nice.
With that kind of stated, help us understand, what is your favorite European city that either you visited or is still on your bucket list to visit? Where would you say, Jay?
So it's got to be, it's on the bucket list, okay? Because the only place that I've ever traveled outside of the U.S. was Costa Rica. And that's where you mentioned this, or you tiptoed around it. That's where I met my wife. We were contestants on a reality TV show that was based off of deep sea fishing, right? So this kind of ties into, and I mean, you got to forgive me. I don't know if it's a city, a state. I don't know what it's called, but I was doing some research on this. There's two reasons why I chose Eastern Sicily. Okay. Number one, they're supposed to have some of the best blue tuna fishing in the Mediterranean. So it kind of goes back to how we met and whatnot. And part of something we did a couple of months ago, excuse me, it was less than a month ago. We were in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, and we were visiting the state park, and we got there and we didn't know this, but there's actually a castle there. It's called Alea Castle. And we toured it. And you want to talk about mind-provoking, thought-provoking ideas. I just started thinking, how cool would it be to start traveling around and visiting all these castles so that one day maybe we can incorporate those ideas into our own, right? And so when I was doing some research on Eastern Sicily, apparently there's a lot of castles that you can go and tour in the area. So I have to go with that if that's on my bucket list.
So we will definitely take Sicily as an answer because of the part of Italy. I live just north of there in Sardinia. So so we'll take Sicily, and there's a lot of different. Yes, there's some pretty wonderful, amazing places over there. There's Taormina, but we'll take Sicily. I like that. See, man, come on, man. You thought this was going to be a big deal. Like you knocked it out of the park. You knocked it out. You did research, man. I love that.
But, all right. So you're from Ohio. So I'm a redneck from Alabama. Okay. I grew up in Alabama. Geography was not my strongest suit. So I'm not joking. When I was thinking, is Sicily like a state? What is it? A city?
You crushed it, man. You crushed it. I never even thought I was going to get to California, man. But hey, listen, these things happen. These things happen. So when you get over to Sicily, when you're ready for the trip, let me know, and we'll connect on that. We'll connect on it. So here's the next question, right? So next thing, it really has to do with a lot of I would consider myself to be super fortunate, right, Jay? Because like you, I get a chance to meet some pretty amazing people, very successful people. I would consider you to be someone who's very successful as well. You've got an amazing mission, going to get out there, impact a million lives, helping people also be investors in real estate, grow personally, et cetera, et cetera. So with that stated, I guess one of the things that I have recognized, and hopefully you would agree as well, is like one of the things that makes people successful, like the successful people, one of the things that makes them successful is because they, unlike most people, when they put a plan together, They put the plan together and then they go out and they execute that plan, right? And they get everything right the first time, which allows them to go much. You're just what? What did I say?
Wait a minute. You said they get everything right the first time. I want to meet these people.
This is funny. It's a joke, of course. When you're start laughing, I love it. You guys should check out the video version. Jay's got like the greatest smile ever. So here's the thing. Of course not, man. I mean, it's like laughable. Of course they don't get things right the first time, and if they do, it probably doesn't happen like that all the time.
Right.
That was a joke. The reality, Jay, is people that are successful, not only do they usually not get it right the first time, they probably get things wrong 20 to 50 times more than most people.
Right.
But they do one thing very differently. And this is no joke. The first one was a joke, but this is no joke. Because every single time that I've seen a successful person make a relevant mistake or learning opportunity or whatever you want to call it, what they expected didn't happen and it was relevant. Every single time they stop, they learn from that mistake, and then they put different strategies, tactics, and actions in place to minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening again. So I don't want you to think about the mistake or dwell on the mistake or dwell on the problem or the learning opportunity, but really think about what was the lesson that you took away from that incident that you know that the Going Long family needs to hear today. What would that one lesson be that you'd share with us?
Do your proper due diligence. Just you gotta trust but verify, as the old saying goes. Doesn't matter what a realtor, a broker, a partner tells you. You got to do your own due diligence and make sure that this checks all the boxes. Because at the end of the day, I just use that corporate phrase. At the end of the day, at the end of the day,
bingo.
This is an extreme ownership type of lifestyle. And while you can have the best relationships with your partners, brokers, realtors, your team, whatnot, it's on you to make the right decision. And I have definitely, the only time I've ever lost money in a real estate deal, and luckily it was just a deal that my wife and I did, no partners on it at all. We did not do our proper due diligence. And here's the thing, back to trusting your gut. I knew, like, in going into this deal, I was like, you need to do an inspection. You need to do this. You need to do this. And I felt I got wrapped up in the opportunity, felt like it was going to escape me. And my gut's in there saying, no, do your due diligence, just stick to your numbers. And I didn't. So we ended up losing some money on it. But the proper due diligence is the phrase. Proper
due diligence and stick to your guns when you get the outcome of the due diligence. Love that. Appreciate it, Jay. And then this is the last one, man. Last of the Going Long final three, which is really about helping to feed the brain even more. And talk to us about, and I know you're an Audible guy, but talk to us about what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family? What would that be?
So this book is my new Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. I know that book probably has mentioned a lot of times here on your podcast. Once or twice. Yeah. So the new one for me is The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. And I've dropped several of the questions. And the premise of the book is to get in what he calls thinking time, where you're just head down, no distractions, multiple times during the week, and thinking about your business and what you want to grow and whatnot. And so he gives you some examples of questions that really, I got it on Audible first. I ordered the hard copy, and now the hard copy has all highlights, page turned, whatnot. I mean, it's just slaps me in the face. It's
fantastic.
Like, wow. Yeah.
No, absolutely fantastic. So road less stupid. And don't worry, everybody, if you're running on the treadmill, if you're in the car, don't stop. Like, just keep driving. We're going to make it really simple. We'll have a link. You just click to it, and you can do that. So, wow. Jay, man, this time like flies by, dude. Like it just flies by. It's like one of these things I'm thinking about you starting out telling us about being employee number 5. Right. And going through an acquisition, you knew what that was like. And then you also figured out, hey, you've gone through this once or twice, and you finally got to a point where life happened, is what I'd like to say, with the corporate world. And you wanted to just ask yourself that one simple question, which is like, how do the wealthy get and stay wealthy? And when you figured that out, you and your wife, you decided, hey, listen, not only are we going to learn about this stuff, we're actually going to take action so that we can go from theory to practical knowledge. And as you did that, you understood the risks that were associated. You were scared. You were nervous. You were fearful. You broke through that fear. Fortunately, you have a wonderful wife that also helped you realize, hey, what's the worst thing that can happen, man? Worst thing that can happen, well, we lose our money. But guess what? We would have learned a lot from that. And so you did that once. You did it twice. You continue to get more experience. You continue to realize like, hey, listen, we want to build this. We want to get on the track. And then life happened again. And this time, rather than saying, hey, listen, after 19 years in the corporate world, I know I have a lot of different skills. I know that I've done biz dev. I've done sales development. I've done customer success. I understand the IT realm, all of these different things. So you recognize that, hey, listen, this time I'm just going to surround myself with other people that know more than me and or people that want to get to the point that I am. You get together, you peer learn, you mastermind, and you're helping people that are all over the US and hopefully after this conversation across the globe that are also, looking to how do they make sure that they're building their runway to be able to be in a position like you are in today, Jay. So, and everybody's listening to me and they're going, Billy, just be quiet and ask him the question for this thing. So here's the thing, Jay, everybody wants to know, what's the best way to contact you, to get in touch more with you and understand more about what you're doing at W-2 Capitalist? Help us out, please.
Yeah. And so one thing I want to circle back around there, one of the things that I like to brag about is our mastermind members. We have people who are either located or logged in from 7 different countries around the world. So it's some in Germany. I was going to say Italy, but that was for something else. But Guatemala, Mexico. I mean, I like to say we're international. And so the landing page for everything W2 Capitalist is W2Capitalist.com. But one of the things that I've started doing, just because I am really so passionate about helping folks, is I'm going to give you my cell phone number. So I don't know how international data rates apply or anything, disclosure there. But here's what I want you to do. If you're interested in talking more, or if I can help you in any way, send me a text and say, hey, I heard you on Billy Kill's podcast, saw him on his YouTube channel. And then I will initiate a conversation. If you try to call me, then guess what? It's going to go straight to voicemail and I'm not going to call you back. So, just to be transparent, I get a lot of spam and calls anyway. So, but yeah, my cell phone number is 205-249-0248.
Wow. You heard it here first, everybody. So Jay just gave you his phone number. And listen, this is one of the things that is also very, he's done something, been very transparent. And when you reach out, definitely reach out and let him know that you've already invested time getting to know more about his story, understanding where he's coming from and where you believe he can help you. And so having that personal invitation is great. And you can also check him out. You're not saying this, but I'm going to say this.
I appreciate it.
You guys should check him out of his Instagram channel, because I can tell you that he goes through a daily exercise of chasing and battling his fears, and he helps to educate you in a way that's going to be helpful to you. So over on Instagram, and I know you're on LinkedIn as well. And when you reach out to him there, definitely leave him a personalized invitation. So it's just going to help the two of you continue the conversation. And listen, Jay, I can't even, it's literally flown by, man. On behalf of the entire Going Long family, I just want to say thank you very much for investing your time with me and with us today. And thank you so very much. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
All right, perfect. Jay, give me just literally 15 seconds and then we'll wrap things up.
Okay.
Everybody, check it out. Jay made it super simple. He gave you very practical, applicable things that you can go out and go from theory to practice. He's talked about how you can even get together with other people, peer-to-peer, masterminding. Take his advice, take his ideas, and put them into action today. And listen, while you're doing that, I'm going to be here preparing the very next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.